Hi there. Hi. I want to start being a little bit more spontaneous with what I'm sharing, and I probably will start scheduling some calls, but there's something I just wanted to share. Hi, Tamsin. Good to see you. I just want to share something really quickly, and it doesn't have to be really quickly, but I want to talk about the connection between epigenetics, our home, and our perception. So epigenetics, if you're not familiar with epigenetics, it is how our environment informs our outcome. And so if you think biology, think of a petri dish. In a petri dish, you have a homogeneous environment, and cells respond in a certain way depending on the environment. So you can have identical cells, and Bruce Lipton did this amazing work a few decades ago, and he had identical stem cells in two separate environments, in these two separate petri dishes. And what he discovered was that the outcome of the cell changes when the environment changes. And so this was great for genetic research, because what it meant was if we have a genetic predisposition to something like in our family line, that we can change our environment so that we can change our outcome. So if I have a predisposition toward cancer in my family line, I can change my environment by my food and how I take care of my body and my mind to change the outcome of my odds of getting cancer. So that's just an example. And so when you think of epigenetics, and when you think, okay, our environment can influence our outcomes, when we take that to our home and we say, okay, I am like the cell in the petri dish, and the petri dish is my home. And how I organize, how I arrange my home is going to influence the outcomes of my life. And so that's what this version of holistic design is. It's looking at our living environment of our home and how we can use our home to change the probability of certain outcomes happening in our life. And we do that room by room, and we look with a discerning eye at different influences happening within our space. And so basically we have our home, and I'm going to make sure you can see this. We have our home that communicates with us, and really most of it happens within the subconscious mind. So when our environment is communicating with us, it's mostly happening within our subconscious mind. And if y'all have been listening to me, and I don't mean that like sarcastically, but if you've been following me, you understand that the subconscious mind, there's 50 to 75,000 thoughts that we're having every single day within our mind, and 95% of those thoughts are within the subconscious mind. That means our planning mind and our intentions are happening within our conscious mind. And so that's only like 5 to 10% of the power of our mind is where our planning and our intention is. Everything else is with the subconscious. And so it makes a lot of sense to start making the subconscious more conscious, because we're putting more power behind our intentions and what we want. So we want our conscious and subconscious mind to be aligned. And the best way to do that is a great way to do that is to make certain that our living environment, where we spend so much time in our life, is communicating with what we want. So we are aligning our home with what we consciously want, which we consciously intend, so that we can start working with this malleable fabric of the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind actually holds the potential for whatever it is we want. So we use our home to access the subconscious mind, and we use our conscious mind to plant our intentions and with our values within our space. Okay, so does that make sense? Can y'all give me thumbs up if that makes sense to y'all? Again, I'm not super articulate when it comes to IG Lives, so just bear with me on the technical side of things. Okay, so we have our home and then we have our mind. And so what's happening between these two, there's a language and our environment. And we can call it our home or our physical environment. But our environment is communicating with our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind gets cues from our environment. And it translates those into thoughts and beliefs, okay? So we have our home. It communicates, in layman's terms, it's the language of home, but it's also the language of our environment. I also call it neurospatial linguistics. So neuro is mind. Spatial is our environment. Spelling, environment. And then, of course, linguistics is language. So the language of home, language, the language of home, and can you see that? It's a little bit low. Anyway, so the important thing to recognize is with this language of home, what's happening between our environment and our mind. This is where our perception lives. Okay? And so how we perceive our environment into meaning. So what this means is when we see something in our environment, we create the meaning of it. Okay? So if I am driving down the road and I see someone flick a cigarette out of their car, I have a different perception than someone else who maybe is a smoker and also litters, right? So, and that's just an example I thought of off the top of my head. So that doesn't have, that doesn't quite grasp what I wanted to share, but how we interpret something into meaning. So it can be, when I say our environment, it can be our environment with our relationships. It can be our environment with our space. The best example, or the easiest example, is if we are living in a jail cell, we have a certain physical experience. We have a certain emotional experience. We have a certain mental experience that's happening. And it's going to influence how we are behaving. It's going to influence how we feel in our body, which is really, really important. And so if you imagine yourself in this beautiful oasis with lots of windows and a beautiful view and the sound of birds and fresh flowers everywhere, you're going to have a very different experience physically, mentally, emotionally, and how you're feeling energetically. And so this is the power of place. And this is how, over time, the messages that our home is sending us is going to affect how we feel, how we think, and how we're being in the world. And so I want to get back to perceiving. So how we perceive our environment into meaning influences the narrative that we experience our life. And so if your home is always cluttered and the curtains are always closed, that is communicating its own narrative to you. And if you're living in that type of environment every single day, that is going to be slightly oppressive, but the cumulative effect of that external influence is going to have a long-lasting effect. And what happens is the neural networks in our brain, they start creating these grooves, and that's how we become, our environment sort of hardwires these narratives within our mind. And so just recognize that you have a very intimate relationship with your environment. You have a very intimate relationship with your home, whether you realize it or not, because our home is echoing these internal narratives of the subconscious mind. And so we want to be more aware. We want to know what language, what our home is articulating within our subconscious mind, because what happens is the subconscious mind plays reels on autoplay. And our home, because our home is communicating these same narratives, these same statements over and over and over within our routines and patterns of our day, our home is like our programming partner to the subconscious mind. And so we want to become extremely aware of the language, the architecture of our home communicates. We want to be aware of the layout our home communicates. We want to be aware of the messages our decor is communicating. So all these different elements of our home are communicating with our subconscious and reinforcing and perpetuating this program that's happening within our subconscious mind. So those 50 to 75,000 thoughts that are happening every single day, our home is just reinforcing and perpetuating those. And so that's what makes our home an incredible place to reprogram the outdated beliefs of the subconscious mind and the outdated narratives. And we can begin to access the subconscious and make it more conscious and create these narratives and these statements that we want to help propel us forward. Okay? Because the truth is, the majority of stuff held within the subconscious mind is program that we learned in our early developmental years, and also extreme or intense emotion. So whatever we were trained to believe during our upbringing by people who cared for us and wanted to keep us safe in life, that is part of the programming that's happening within the subconscious mind. The other piece that is in the programming of the subconscious is extreme emotion. So if something intense happened to us, good or bad, we come up with beliefs around those events or circumstances. And then repetition. Repetition is how we program the subconscious, how the subconscious was programmed, but it's also how we can reprogram the subconscious mind. So does anyone have any questions? That's sort of like the crux of what I wanted to share, is that our home with epigenetics and our subconscious mind offers this really incredible opportunity to reprogram the subconscious mind, to make the subconscious more conscious, and to really shift our perception and our self-perception. So that's all I wanted to share today. I thank each of you for popping in and joining me. And if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments. Have a great day. Oh, wait. Let's see. Question: how can we start making changes in our home? Well, the first thing that I think is the most important thing to do is to go through every room in your home and make sure there is no toxic clutter. That's the most important thing. So that's like visual poison, okay? And we don't want to consume poison, and we can consume it through our digestive tract. We can consume it through our self-talk and what we're allowing ourselves to listen to out in the world, and what we see visually within our home. So the first thing is, I would recommend you go through every single room in your home and make sure there is nothing you do not use, sorry, that's just normal clutter. Go through every room in your home and make sure nothing in your home brings up a negative feeling, a negative emotion, or a negative memory. So if there is something in your home that brings up something uncomfortable or something you don't like, or every time you see it, you're like, ugh, I hate that thing, get rid of it. Are there any books you can recommend about this? I have a series of books that I go into room. I explain this whole philosophy, and I go room by room to guide you through this process. I also have a series of courses, and I've just created an a la carte menu, so you can sort of pick and choose whatever you want to experience. If you want the whole, like the full meal deal, the mental reset is probably the best experience. And that is also on a link in my profile. This is a new field. I'm pioneering a new field that really hasn't even been invented, called Neurospatial Linguistics. And I have a book that's not yet published, but I will take this as a good nudge to get that book published. Any other questions that you would like to ask before we sign off? I'm happy to answer any questions. And then if I do think of a book that I would recommend, I'll let you know. And yeah, The Biology of Belief is a book that Bruce Lipton wrote. So that's a great book. His work inspired a large part of my work. But as far as I know, I can't think of a book, but I'll let you know if I think of anything. Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, I am going to sign off. And again, thank you so much for being here. Next time I'll try to schedule something a little bit farther in advance so that you'll have some notice. All right, have a beautiful day. Bye.